I love this trailer. I know Dune looks incredible. It's people are talking about will it rival Lord of the Rings, but when I see this trailer for Spider-Man, I'm reminded of Spider-Man movies from the past. I'm reminded and that's in a positive and negative way. And I thought of Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man movies, specifically 1 and 2. And then I also thought of Andrew Garfield's The Amazing Spider-Man 2 while watching this because of all the characters and all the villains that we got on screen. But Ricky, what do you think of this trailer? I mean, 4 years later, we find Peter Parker. What do you think about Tom Holland and as Spidey in this trailer?
I loved it. I love this trailer. I think first off, post No Way Home, we needed some context around where Spider-Man is, where Peter is, even just in the teaser trailer that this is, right? We just needed something because the ramifications of what happened in the last movie were so huge that you couldn't just say, "Oh, by the way, here's your Peter. We're going to tease this movie." No, you give us a synopsis, you give us this just for some context here. That was the proper move, and they executed that. Well done by the MCU. Someone that has been struggling to do that, they did a good job here. Now, when you actually get into it, what have we been talking about with this movie? We want a more grounded Spider-Man, And what do? They first off, this promo was absolutely ridiculous, but we could talk about that like later if you want. But in the promo,
Oh,
when you
right.
see the images of the first ever Spider-Man comic with him swinging that guy, right? That's a graphic here, and you see a few other of those snippets from like comic book, po- t- not posters, but the actual, uh,
Recreations.
yeah, recreations. It's like, all right, are they gonna go back to like actually a grounded Spider-Man? And then you see this, and it's like he's a full-time Spider-Man. He's clearly going through a rebirth or a reborn. They really focus that on the narration, right? And he's either mutating or some sort of physical evolution as he's again going through this period of him becoming a full-time Spider-Man where the world has forgotten about Peter Parker, but the world loves Spider-Man, and he's battling that inner conflict. And for me, when you really look at it, this is going to be a Tom Holland movie where you're not going to have anyone overshadowing him. All these villains coming to be Willem Dafoe, Alfred Molina, or whatnot. Or if you look back to the original Michael Keaton, Robert Downey Jr., no one's going to be overshadowing him. And it's going to be a true origin story that we never really had with Peter, where again, he's going to be trying to meet with MJ. He's going to be trying to meet with Ned, right? He's trying to figure out again. He's a lonely Spider-Man, lonely Peter Parker. That's how he was in the comics. It's fantastic to see because it's going to kickstart a new trilogy. So I really am believing in this trilogy after seeing this trailer. And if we want to nitpick later, happy to nitpick. But for the most part, like I loved it. I absolutely loved this trailer.
Like for me, this felt like this isn't like an origin. It's more like the first 3 movies in the MCU were the origin story. And now, like you're reminded with him going through this personal crisis of like the world doesn't know who Peter Parker is. This is like kind of the equivalent of Spider-Man 2. When he goes through that existential crisis, he's having those powers malfunctioning, and it even reminded me of Tobey Maguire. He's got organic webbing in this, because probably it looks like he's mutating into probably a spider. Man spider is being teased in this movie, and that has me all sorts of jacked up. But when I think about this movie for Tom Holland, man, this has an opportunity to be his moment as Spider-Man. Like we always thought he looked the part. He fits like the high school mold, but now we're going 4 years later, a more mature Spider-Man. And this is like the most acting I think we're going to get to see from Tom Holland is Peter Parker, and Spider-Man. And what I saw from here, he looks dead inside. And I thought there were some really great shots from this trailer. And a lot of it has to do with the eyes of Tom Holland. And this tells me what influence did they get from the Batman, right? Where it's like you always see Batman in the suit, right? You're always criticizing the acting of Batman, and you're like, how much is this actually like work for Christian Bale? But here is Robert Pattinson, and he's doing so much with those eyes, and they tell you a lot about your hero. And how do you like show your hero what they're feeling when they're masked all the time. And the MCU loves to rip off Tom Holland's mask. But I love that shot. I know people are like, it doesn't make sense, where it's like that camera inside the mask and it's, you think it's like literally right on his eye. But to have that look of Peter as he is falling from like the Empire State Building and like dead inside, that's what it feels like. He has no friends. He's stalking Ned and MJ, and somehow they're going to have to explain that dynamic and how he's on the inside at their parties and things like that after the events of No Way Home. But I just thought this is an opportunity for him. This is the Spider-Man 2 from Tobey's movie. This is the opportunity where he is forgotten by everyone and he wants to forget about himself to the point where he becomes Spider-Man and becomes a spider. Like, that is such a ballsy move, dude, for them to do this, and we're starting a whole new trilogy and he becomes a spider. This is like, also, I want to talk about this theory that he is Man Spider. This is like what, you know, I thought Spider-Man 3, where it's like you're going for the symbiote, but you're not doing the symbiote. You know, this is where MCU and Spider-Man trying not to do what's already been done when we talked about the villains that were in the first 3 Spider-Man movies, but like also not having these powers take over his body and like transform him. They're doing it through a very unconventional story that maybe no one thought of doing on the big screen. And I like how Destin Daniel Cretton's kind of going for that, you know?
Yeah, I totally agree. I think to kind of piggyback on what you were saying, like the Man Spider would be a move, right? That would be a major shift because again, like you see like all the webbing in his room, the cocooning potentially, right? That's a hint at the Man Spider element and him not having him having organic webbing,
Yeah.
right? So those are all hints that it's Man Spider. But it could be something else. Like I know a lot of people are saying this could be the other, where he evolves, where Peter thinks he's dying, and then from the radioactive spider bite, and because he sees himself like doing all this crazy shit, and that's why he goes to Bruce Banner, who's a specialist in radiation, right? And then you see the testing in the trailer and whatnot, and Bruce not recognizing who he is, but saying, "Who are you?" And whatnot. So that's a potential storyline too. I think Man Spider, that arc is definitely minus money after this trailer, but I wouldn't count out the other arc either because again, the Man Spider arc would be a risk because that could get a little flimsy when you try to get into, start a new trilogy and him becoming an actual spider. Like again, if you look back at the comic series, and also even the animated series in the 90s, like that thing can get out of hand. So that is a risky move to make, especially when you have Spider-Man as you see the review, the trailer views that you talked about. Like he's their new guy, like Chris Evans, Robert Downey Jr. I know Robert Downey Jr. is still Doom, or he's still in here with Doom, but like Spider-Man's now their A plus lister. Like he is their guy in the MCU. Turning him into Man Spider would be a move and a half. I think that's too risky. I don't know if they would do that fully.
Dude, I think they're gonna do it. I think, and it makes me think, man, like you have to include Hulk in this movie, right? Bruce Banner, like, because that role where he's like the professor who is giving advice to Peter, like scientific advice. Usually in Spider-Man movies, that's reserved for, Dr. Connors. That's reserved for the character that eventually becomes a lizard. But you chose to have Bruce Banner here. And that tells me he's becoming a goddamn spider, and Hulk is going to have to fucking fight Man Spider. That's going to happen. And it also makes me wonder, we're talking about the inclusion of these characters. We still don't know who the main villain is, right? So we'll talk about Hulk and we'll talk about Punisher, right, in a bit. But to see the characters here, we have Boomerang, we have Tarantula. We don't know who Sadie Sink is playing. We'll get into that. But I'm not sure we have an actual villain or a big bad of this movie. And what I mean by that, we didn't get to see Tombstone, who's played by Marvin Jones. There's a narration by Keith David, makes you wonder who he's playing in the movie. It sounds like Keith David, and that hasn't been confirmed. But when I see this movie, I think this is why I'm also like, this is gonna be a Tom Holland movie, man. Because what if Peter, he's pushed through stress, and like maybe Tombstone and the Hand is also in this. Tombstone is having these underground criminal, like there's this tension happening, right? What would be the Hand versus Tombstone, right? Tarantula and Boomerang could be people that work under, Tombstone or something like that. And it's like a gang war, like a super powered gang war, super criminal gang war that Spider-Man has to break up in New York City. And we also know from Daredevil Born Again, Fisk is ruling New York City. So how does that play a role in all of this? Daredevil Born Again is coming out, right? In a week. It'll be out in a sec. So I wonder what those ramifications will be. But I wonder if it's going to be he's pushed and stressed by this gang war, becomes this man Spider, and then it's going to be like Hulk also having to stop man Spider. Like I wonder if there is truly a big bad and how it could be kind of unconventional or different from other Spider-Man movies. Do you think that's a possibility?
I don't hate that take. I don't. I think to kind of build off what you were saying, like Tom Holland here, like you could just see in the trailer, just again, he feels the burden of being Spider-Man, like basically full time and not having any friends, being alone with Spider-Man basically. And I think like you look at it and you see like the still or the scene with him next to the washer, the scene inside the mask, like this is going to rely on him, even with all this huge ensemble cast, right? And because if when you look at it, like Hulk, even though in the comics he's an A-lister, the MCU he's not an A-lister, he's a supporting actor. John Bernthal, the Punisher, could he do his own thing? He's had his own show, but in the MCU he's new, right? So he's a support. And John Bernthal, great supporting actor in his own right. So that's a supporting character. So no matter how big you think these actors or characters are that are around Spider-Man in this movie, Tom Holland in this movie, this is going to be a Tom Holland movie, and that's going to be the core of it. And I think that's what you got here, and that's why you saw a flash of like the Mr. Negative or whatnot. You saw a flash of the Hand here. You saw most
Scorpion.
likely a flash of Sadie Sink, but presumably Sadie Sink, but not officially. And then you mentioned like we haven't like, is there a big bad? We know Tombstone's in this movie. He's not even in the trailer here. So we still haven't seen a lot, but what we do know is that this is a Tom Holland movie. This isn't a RDJ team up or a reliance on a big bad of Michael Keaton or a Jake Gyllenhaal like we've had in the past, or a team of villains and Doctor Strange in the last movie. This is Tom Holland, and then we figure everything else out. And I think that's really core to what we need from Spider-Man going forward. Because even though he's in the MCU, right, he's still at its best. Again, like we've been saying, when it's a grounded Spider-Man, when he's just a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, and that's what I want to see here, and that's what I think this trailer is giving off the energy of.
And I'm even looking at the synopsis, like the villain aspect. Like the synopsis tells us there's a strange new pattern of crimes that give rise to one of the most powerful threats he has ever faced. Okay. What is that powerful threat? Probably not himself. That'd be really deep for a synopsis, you know? But like Sadie Sink, we presume that she was the one covering her face. And we haven't even brought up the Department of Damage Control that are also headed by Tramel Tillman's character in this movie. Like, this is where I was reminded a little bit of Amazing Spider-Man 2, where you talked about all the villains. Then you have Department of Damage Control, and then you have Sadie Sink, and then you have him trying to reconnect with MJ and Ned. There's so much going on in this trailer. Insane amount in this trailer that it kind of says it's overload. It's like Euphoria if you're a Spider-Man fan to see all these different characters, in this movie. But to me, it was just overwhelming. I think when I'm watching this, because I'm like, how are they going to fit everything into one movie? You know, you thoughts on that, man? I thought this Amazing Spider-Man 2 just came to mind immediately.
A little bit, a little bit, because there is a lot. But I go back to what my prior comments earlier on. I think it's always going to come back to Tom Holland. It's always
Yeah.
going to come back to Peter. And I think with the other movies in the other trilogy, they tried to do that, but it was just too big. It was too MCUified. This is not going to be MCUified, I think. Even though you have all these different characters, a lot of them are we haven't seen before, or they're very small, or they know their role. Like I said with Hulk and Bruce Banner, and I don't think it's going to become too big, unless like they throw a Jean Grey in here, then we're getting too big, which is my only really real worry. But for what I saw potentially Sadie Sink being in this, I don't know if we're gonna get Jean Grey here.
And like the other villains, like Tarantula and Boomerang, you know how I can see them being used? Almost similar to what we saw in Fantastic Four First Steps, where
Like the
it's like
first act or something.
just saying, like in Fantastic Four First Steps, these heroes have been around for a while, you know? And then we could have Boomerang and Tarantula in this movie and be like, these Spider-Man has been fighting crime for the last 4 years as he's gone into his adult years, you know? And then you're saving people like Scorpion, maybe works for Tombstone, you know, or something like that. And then you're left with, you know, the Hand. The Hand, I think, is something interesting because we saw them in Daredevil. So it's like the Hand, are they going to be a part of the beginning of that montage type of thing? Probably not. They seem pretty overwhelming. And it's also where you find Tom Holland in those scenes. He's looks emotionally broken when he's fighting the Hand. And maybe he's starting to be overtaken by Man Spider in those type of moments, like those mutations and things like that. So it has me curious about that. Sadie Sink, masked, I think it's her, judging by the build. It would be interesting because we're talking about a mutation that Peter's going through. We're about to enter the mutant saga, right? Trying to kickstart some of these like X-Men heroes potentially. And they show some weird abilities where people are getting their necks snapped, you know, kind of violent for an MCU and Spider-Man trailer a little bit. But like people are immediately pointing to that. Um, you're saying it's maybe too big of a character. And it's also like, if it is Jean Grey, do they want her as a villainous force in the first movie when we know we have the Phoenix storyline somewhere down the road, probably with X-Men? So like, are we convinced it's Jean Grey?
That's where what I'm talking about. Like this feels like it's a more grounded storyline, and for us to go full Omega Mutant Jean
Like
Grey,
street level. Like we keep saying grounded, but I think we mean street level.
street level, yeah,
Yeah.
Tombstone, Scorpion. Like this is definitely more Punisher. Like this feels more street level, and I would say a grounded Peter Parker. Let's just say that. But to throw in Jean Grey, or like I know some people are yelling about Rogue because of that subway sequence.
Oh yeah.
Like I understand their argument of, oh, this is a mutating Peter Parker. Like, let's throw some mutants in here, right? And Sadie Sink, like the fan casting with Jean Grey. But throwing in an Omega mutant into a Spider-Man movie where, again, it looks like they're focusing on Tom Holland and like everyone's coming back to Tom Holland. Jean Grey does like that would not work when you're trying to kickstart this new trilogy to kickstart again. This feels like an origin story almost, right? This feels like if you forget about the prior three films, right? And like or like I hate to use a Batman reference again, but let's look at Pattinson. His origin story, we missed it. We didn't get it. We went straight to year 2 Batman. If you took away like the prior Spider-Man films with Tom Holland and you went straight to this one, right? And you got this trailer, you would understand exactly where we're at, right? Maybe not the MCUified of like, oh, no one knows who Peter Parker is, but of him like trying to be friends with somebody and potentially Ned Leeds. Or, oh, there's MJ, and you could see a potential connection there. They're trying to hint at something that's like what you would see in an origin movie of a trilogy to kickstart it. And I think Jean Grey, throwing in a Jean Grey, would just throw that all away. It would just overshadow the entire premise that you're trying to build here.
And like, I mean, she's in Doomsday. Like excuse me, Secret Wars. You know, like she's been cast in that. And that's also hinting at, you know, what's gonna if she is Jean Grey, what happens to, you know, if Jean Grey, Famke Janssen shows up in Doomsday? You know, like what happens to her Jean Grey? Are they gonna actually come together in Secret Wars, or is Famke Janssen gonna bite the dust? Like my theory is for pretty much all the X-Men aside from Cyclops in Doomsday. Okay. So if it's not her, do you have any guesses who she might be? I know we talked about Shathra, right, as one character. Um, we're so used to seeing Spider-Man villains that haven't been used, you know, because that's what the tendency has been in the MCU. And then there's been also, you know, Sony rights issues that people have been rumored about why they couldn't use certain villains. Interesting. I don't know. I think right now I'm starting to think it is Jean Grey personally. Like I think it might be, and I think it's going to be Department of Damage Control looking to work with Spider-Man to basically track down Jean Grey, and it seems like she might get captured for a little bit. There's someone in like that's being shackled to a chair, right? And it seems like they're being interrogated. I think this might contribute to the stress that Spider-Man is under, where there is maybe the Department of Damage Control is looking to consult Spider-Man to try and catch this Omega level mutant, or along with this underground crime that he's dealing with Tombstone and the Hand or whatever, Scorpion, whatever's going on there. And that stress combined with him trying to reconnect with MJ and Ned could force him to become Man Spider. So I think, honestly, the overwhelming elements of this trailer might be helpful. It might be good because it drives him to become that Man Spider. And that is like the crux of the movie, So it makes me wonder about that. And then at the end of the day, he'll find that if she is in fact Jean Grey or some other character, that he is setting her off on her own, maybe to, go with Charles Xavier or something like that later on.
Yeah, potentially. I could see that. And this movie's, again, X-Men are worthy of a big intro, and Spider-Man, that'll be a big intro. So I could see that. And I definitely, like, even though I'm saying I think personally Jean Grey is too big for this type of movie that they're trying to put off here, I still think it is Jean Grey. Yeah, I still think they're
Yeah,
looking that
I
way.
think it's her, dude.
Yeah, so I could say all I want about how I wish it wasn't her, but I do think it will be. And you know what? The way I'm seeing this trailer, I think they're gonna get it right. I'm having faith in
Dude,
Desmond
I'm
Daniel
so
Grey.
jacked for this movie,
Yeah,
dude. I thought this
I
trailer was unbelievable.
I have two other things with this. One's a nitpick, but I'll get to that later, and it's really small, so I don't want to like belabor it. But my big question is, if they're in New York and Spider-Man, again, this is 4 years since No Way Home, and Spider-Man is being heralded as this great hero, and he's getting a key to the city. What about the ban on mass vigilantes
Good point.
from Daredevil? It makes no sense. I need clarification. This is where the MCU shows are now having a problem with the actual theatrical output.
And especially if the Department of Damage Control is potentially working with Spider-Man.
Yeah.
If that's the case, but when is this taking place?
If this is right after Daredevil season 2, and let's say Daredevil season 2 ends with Fisk is dead, or not dead, but like done, and mass vigilantes are allowed, then okay. But then again, it's like 4 years. Spider-Man's been working for 4 years, and they love him over these past 4 years, they haven't loved him in 4 years. But
key to the city.
Yeah, he gets a key to the city within 3 months after the mass vigilante ban is up. I don't know how they're going to connect that well. They'll figure, they're smarter than me. They'll figure something out. But that's something I just haven't wrapped my head around yet.
That's a great point. And honestly, I don't know how they work around that. I thought also, man, with the way you're talking about connectivity with other Marvel projects, like the way he comes across in this trailer, you got to think of Thunderbolts. If you're an MCU fan, you got to think of like The Void. You got to think of Sentry, and you got to think of like the theme of that movie. Just like a lot of it was depression and mental illness. And I was just like watching Tom Holland in this movie. He doesn't have the pep in his step, that he typically does as Peter Parker. So I'm thinking about that too. Does the Void play a role in this? What was he doing while that was happening in New York? Like things like that.
Oh, yeah, that's also a good question. But I think what you're saying here with Tom Holland, where this is going to be more emotional. I know, obviously,
moody,
Yeah, he's more moody. Aunt May obviously dying in the last movie, so very emotional there, right? And then him almost killing Green Goblin, Defoe's Green Goblin. So yes, I understand that was emotional as well. But this one is going to be core Peter Parker of what Spider-Man is, of what the core Peter Parker is, right? And he's grown up, and he's a loner, like a pure loner now, because he has literally no friends, and he's going to be less plucky. He's not in high school. He's grown up. Like you see Tom Holland's transformation as Spider-Man, as a man.
I love that he's an adult now.
Let alone Spider-Man mutating and becoming more manly, right? It's all coming together. So it's going to be a different type of performance from Tom Holland, a different type of Peter Parker, a different type of Spider-Man, and it's the type of Spider-Man we've been waiting for. Where maybe the high school element, these friends, the man in the chair, that was just getting a little too much and too MCUified. Now I have great feelings after this trailer that they're they're heading in the right direction of what we thought they were doing, and it's great to see that come to screen so far. So far, so I don't want to get ahead of myself because I sound really excited, but man, like we had back-to-back banger trailers, Doc. Like, when was the last time we had two massive trailers? Again, different type of movies, even though they're both like comic slash IP. But when was the last time we had back-to-back banger trailers on the checkup? Ever? Like, insane.
It just, when I saw the Spider-Man trailer, I just thought to myself, Destin Daniel Cretton gets it. Like, I'm like, this guy gets what Spider-Man fans want to see, right? They want to see Spider-Man villains. They want to see a Peter-centered story. They want to see Spider-Man going through a personal crisis, Peter Parker going through a personal crisis, right? And they don't want Iron Man saving the day, and they want the comic book moments. They want the Amazing Fantasy 15, where he's swinging with the man latched on his side, like the hand recreations. It's the boomerang, the tarantula, the slow-mo. That also reminded me of the Amazing Spider-Man. They have those slow-mos that just capture the awesomeness of Spider-Man. The practicality of the swing scenes, things like that. Like, he just gets it. It's good to have a switch up from John Watts, in my opinion, especially when you're trying to jumpstart a new trilogy. Last thing I'll say, Bernthal, Punisher. I think his inclusion might be a little bit different than Banner, because Banner is like, if this wasn't connected to the MCU, he's like the Dr. Connors, but also becomes the monster that has to probably take on like Man Spider or Spider-Man. But Bernthal, to me, is just a reminder that this is a street level story. That's like what I view him as. I don't know if because in the animated series, I know clips are going around, Punisher fights Man Spider in the animated series. I don't know I think they might get a little bit of a recreation of that, maybe, but I think it's more of just like this, like that relationship. It shows you what Spider-Man has been up to the last 4 years, not 15. And I think it's like, hey, he knows Frank Castle. Frank Castle knows Spider-Man, and they have a relationship. And I think it's kind of building out that street level hero, that street level, not syndicate, but group of heroes that we have, right, along with Daredevil. It's kind of like the MCU just doing more world building.
Yes, that's it. World building. It's like these characters exist. Obviously, they weren't in the MCU before, rights and whatnot, right? But it's a seamless transition, right? And what was this trailer simulated them so well, because even the banter, it's like it's perfect. And like, he's about to swear, and then you get the web right into his mouth or into his gun, and then he's like, "Go home, Frank," because Frank, no offense, you ain't Spider-Man. Like, you don't have the stuff. But again, you could still have the comic book accuracies of later down the line if it is a Man Spider, if it is something else. And again, if you look at the themes of Spider-Man, obviously they don't one-to-one align with Punisher, because that's a tragedy, like on another whole different level. But again, they do kind of align within Peter Parker, and they can relate through that. And I think, again, what you said, through the ground level Spider-Man here, that works perfectly with the Punisher. But again, that's also a question of what's going to happen in Daredevil season 2, because he's not really going to be in it. But then Punisher special comes out after that. So what's going to happen in that special to get him in this movie? That's a huge question, where, again, we are MCU-ifying this. We are making it bigger than just the theaters, the theatrical output. And that is a question that MCU has not done right yet. Let's see how they do.
Even the line where he says, "Go home, Frank," that shows me this is a different Spider-Man, compared to the last 3 movies. Like, think about Homecoming. He was the guy being told to go home, and he's telling Frank Castle to go home. I got this, don't
point.
worry about it. Like, it just
he's an adult now. People respect him. He's a bigger figure. It's awesome.